Hi, and welcome to the Bruce Channel. I'm Bruce. Come on in. Step lively, step lively. Got a lot of things going on. So grab your favorite beverage of choice, and here we go. First up, well, the weather finally came out of its drunken stumbling through the tropics. Not sure how long it will last. Wednesday morning here, we got down to 19, which was the same temperature it was at my sister's and brother's in the Cleveland area in Ohio. So that was strange. The winter jasmine held up pretty well. It can take that. But in addition to the irises and dandelions that were coming up, so were my lilies. Not a good thing. And the 19 degrees pretty well took care of the lilies and the irises and the dandelions. All right, so now we're just warming up a little bit. But with the return of seasonal temperatures, it was time to hang out some suet for the birds. So, even if we are normal the rest of the way through the winter, I have saved on heating bills and I've saved on suet bills. Anyway, that polar vortex we experienced a couple of years ago, it is still around. It's just been punishing Europe much more than us this time around. Now, we're not going to be completely spared, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute. Okay, so it's seriously time for football, and we will speak more about it in just a moment. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but I think I have to mention this Thursday night, the Fox Business Network presents the next Republican debate. It will be in North Charleston, South Carolina, where I just was last month. And, all of the polls so far have shown Donald Trump as being the leader in the national polls. But the experts have always told us that very much in advance of the actual voting or caucus, people don't pay much attention. So the polls are likely to be fallible. And then, of course, nowadays, because landlines are becoming less ubiquitous, it's really hard to do polling. Anyway, February is now less than a month away, and that's when Iowans will caucus. And it's, I guess, presumably now they'll start to pay attention. So this Thursday night, and then just 2 weeks later on the 28th, Fox News, not the Business Network, it'll produce another GOP debate, this one from Iowa itself in Des Moines. Now, I am a little upset, more than a little maybe, with the Democratic Party's leadership. I pointed this out before, but the fix is in. Senator Bernie Sanders is seriously challenging former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and his donations have even surpassed the record-breaking pace that Barack Obama had previously done. But Democratic leadership doesn't want you to know that. The next Democratic debate is next Sunday. Yeah. Can you pronounce NFL playoffs? Even if not on at exactly the same time, it's a distraction that didn't have to be. The second game could easily go past 8 p.m. There's no overtime. And if folks get together as they do for, football watching party, men may be on the road home when the debate begins at 9. Or depending how hardy they party, they may not be in any shape to understand what they see. All right, add to that, this is the last Democratic debate until after not only the Iowa caucus, but the New Hampshire primary. So, I think I've said it before. All right, one last note for the Dems. Former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley, who for the most part has acquitted himself well during the debates, still hasn't gotten much traction. And that must be at least partly due to the low viewership. But the latest bad news for his campaign is that he failed to get enough verified signatures to be on the primary in Ohio. Okay, so yes, it is seriously football time. Yes, assuming I post this at the usual Sunday morning time, half of this weekend's NFL playoff games will be over. You'll simply have to believe, or choose not to, that I'm making my selections and recording this in advance of Saturday's games. Of course, if my picks don't pan out, you'll have no trouble believing me. But that wouldn't be my outcome of choice, of course. Anyway, I'm going to use a slightly different procedure than last year. Last year I made the picks all the way through the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl pick did win, but during the way, some of the matchups were invalidated because the matchups depend on the seedings. So if this team loses, then they don't play down the road. So I'm just going to pick this weekend's games, and we'll learn the matchup of next week's games after we see who goes forward. Anyway, it's always difficult to predict these things because injuries are impossible to predict. Several seasons ago, almost a decade, the Bengals were good, really good, maybe better than the Bengals of the last couple of years. But on the first play, maybe the second, quarterback Carson Palmer's knee was blown out. And that sank the Bengals, and the game had just barely begun. And who would have thought that Miami would have beaten New England last week? But because New England had hoped for home field advantage throughout, they played Tom Brady, and now he's got a high ankle sprain. Now, as the second best seed, they will have a bye, but high ankle sprains can take weeks to recover some. So we'll have to see how that all works out. Anyway, for the AFC. Oh, and for the record, these picks of mine are and always have been a combination of facts, matchups, known injuries, home field advantage, and intuition. So for Saturday's AFC game, I'm not even being that logical. Despite being fourth seeded, I don't think logic would choose the Texans to beat the streaking, and I mean super streaking, 9 wins in a row, Kansas City Chiefs. But I think I want the Texans to win. Their starting quarterback is a gutsy guy by the name of Brian Hoyer. He's no Hall of Famer, never will be, but he's fought through a lot of adversity through his career. He is a native Clevelander. He played for Cleveland last year and the year before, and he wasn't re-signed. But yeah, here's the thing. He wanted a conversation with the Browns general manager, Ray Farmer. I'd characterize this as an exit interview. And I don't mean an exit interview with some part-time weekend mail sorter asking for an exit interview with the President of the United States. This was the quarterback who started the most games last season, who had won the most games for the team since, 2007, when they almost made the playoffs, and Ray Farmer wouldn't give him the time of day. So, Brian Hoyer signed with the Texans. He led them to the playoffs. Oh, and making even that a little more bizarre, while he was out with an injury, they won a game when their backup quarterback started, a guy named Brandon Weeden, who was once a first-round draft pick of the Browns and whom Brian Hoyer had backed up in Cleveland. So, purely out of sentiment, I think I'm going with the Texans. I don't want to pick against the one that I want. Logically, maybe not, but there you go. Oh, I got to mention this. I called Ray Farmer the Browns general manager. Well, he was that last March when he dissed Brian, but guess whose ass is out of a job as of last Sunday? Ray Farmer. The other AFC game pits the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday, and I have previously stated that, yeah, I root for the Browns always, but if they're not in the playoffs, my other favorite team, their arch rivals, the Steelers. Goes way back to when they were the Steelers first winning Super Bowls. Now, the Browns and the Steelers hated each other. They have played a lot of tough games, not lately. But if the Steelers did well, that reflected well on the division, once known as the AFC Central, now known as the AFC North. And it is true that Cincinnati is in the same division and would similarly reflect well, but there's some tradition involved. Plus, a friend's daughter attended Carnegie Mellon, so she's a Steelers fan, and another friend, a movie director, although he's based in Augusta, his favorite team is Pittsburgh, not Atlanta. And weirdly, his second favorite team is Cleveland. Anyway, the Bengals have been to many playoff games, and many experts think they have the best overall personnel in the league. They might, but quarterback Andy Dalton has never won a playoff game. Not once. And only got his hand out of a cast on Wednesday. So here I'm kind of picking sentimentally too, but also with some logic. All right, for the NFC, Green Bay and Washington mix it up on Sunday, and this is the one that starts at 4:40. It'll go into the evening. Presumably next week they'll do the same thing, maybe interfering with the debate. Nevertheless, Green Bay was one of the last undefeated teams for a good part of the early season. Washington couldn't do anything in the beginning of the season. Washington closed out strong, beat both Philadelphia. Some have picked Philadelphia to go to the Super Bowl, and the New York Giants, who shouldn't ever really be ruled out. They have won a couple of Super Bowls. So purely with that, teams going in the opposite direction, I'm picking Washington over the Packers. Finally, out of a sense of collegial loss, I'd probably like to see Minnesota beat Seattle, but only because Minnesota has been to the Super Bowl 4 times. They have never won one. Only Buffalo as an equal. Of course, Buffalo did it 4 times in a row. Anyway, as a Browns fan, a long-suffering Browns fan, I can relate to the good folks in Minnesota, yeah. However, I have a good friend who lives in Seattle, plus another acquaintance who lives in Seattle, and my sister and brother-in-law lived in Seattle for years. I'm okay with Seattle winning, and actually, this could change, but based on right now, if I were projecting all the way through the Super Bowl, I think Seattle returns to the Super Bowl, third time in 3 years, and wins it for the second time out of the 3. However, for that logic to work out, naturally, there's a bit of a fly in the ointment for that, and that is this. I talked about the polar vortex. All right, Seattle took a while to get their act together. I mean, they started off, and what happened to them? What happened? Well, now once they got it together, sort of like Kansas City, they went on a rampage, but they were winning big as they were on that rampage. But still, they're a wild card. They are seeded 6th, so they are not playing at home again until next summer, and that creates 2 situations. The loss of their 12th man, that's a super noisy stadium. The fans there achieve a higher decibel level than anywhere else. So not playing at home, they're playing in Minnesota, where the game temperature is, wait a minute, the high temperature all day is expected to be 1 degree. 1 degree above Fahrenheit. Wind chills could be in the minus 20s, and there's just no way to get ready for that or to practice for that. You can't. Now, it won't be the coldest game ever, but it'll be somewhere on the list. The top 5 coldest game temperatures, the coldest was the famous Ice Bowl in 1967 in Green Bay. It was minus 13. Next coldest, minus 9 in Cincinnati in 1996. Kansas City versus the Colts, it was minus 6. And in Cleveland, 1981, it was minus 5. However, when ranked by wind chill, the minus 13 Ice Bowl drops to second, minus 48. But the poor Chargers from sunny California, San Diego, they had absolutely no chance against the Bengals. That wind chill was minus 59. So both teams will be out in the same weather, yes. It certainly could influence how the game is played. It certainly can't be guaranteed that the home team with more experience in the cold wins. Cleveland lost that game in 81 to a California team. Anyway, I have no idea what the good people of Minnesota were thinking. Yeah, they played for 32 years. They played inside the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome. Had a roof. They could climate control. But they tore that down after the 2013 season. Yes, it hadn't been kept up, and there were seats falling. Okay, replace it, fine. But you had a roof, you had a dome. Why not put up another one with a dome? Nope, they got an open stadium in Minnesota. Yeah.
Hey, let me tell you about my book, Shrink. Or wait, I can let others do it.
All right, so welcome back. Remember, you can watch our previous shows at tinyurl.com/Bruce Channel or at our Facebook page, The Bruce Channel. And you can write to us at thebrucechannel@yahoo.com. One last football note. The second college football playoff championship will be played Monday night. Number 1 Clemson against number 2 Alabama. Clemson plays in the ACC, which is headquartered where I live, essentially. And I'd like the ACC to gain some status as a football league. They're a premier hoops league. But I don't think so. I think it's Alabama. Nick Saban has been there too many times. He knows too well how the big stage can affect players unfamiliar with that. And I believe that last year when they were ranked number one and lost to Ohio State, I think that loss will provide a lot of motivation for those players from that team still on this team. All right, the holiday season. I remember when a nice gift was a bottle of top shelf spirits, or a nice gift was a carton or two of cigarettes. Yeah, I know. Today there's a killer, so that's not a nice gift. It's an agent of death. But once upon a time, we learn things. Things change. Another nice gift would have been an electric razor. I remember commercials singing, floating heads, yeah. Over the years, there have been some very heartwarming commercials for beer. Basically just made you feel good watching a horse pull a sleigh in the snow. No problem with that. And for a very special person, the special person, a really, 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 really nice gift might be a diamond bracelet or a necklace. Or, naturally, diamond engagement ring is often offered as a Christmas gift. So for that one super special person, maybe a few $1,000s, yeah. But for more than a few years now, cars seem to have entered the equation. What's that about? A car? Really? Christmas gift? Come on. And especially puzzling, very expensive cars. Oh, look, Santa has brought me... Honey, thank you. Look what Santa bought. A $75,000 Mercedes SUV. That's a Christmas gift? Okay, here's my question. Exactly when did we conflate humble beginnings in a manger with lifestyles of the rich and famous? It's nearly enough to turn one into a curmudgeon. Gadzooks. Well, anyway, I saw this last weekend. I wasn't paying much attention because you can probably tell I'm rather annoyed by expensive car commercials for Christmas gifts. Anyway, they so cloyingly try to equate conspicuous consumption with the season of peace and love. Anyway, not paying attention. Nevertheless, maybe it was subliminal. My eye caught what I think is a mistake. I think it's a mistake. I'd actually like to hope it's a mistake, because if it's not a mistake, then it would have been a rather puckish dig at a competitor. Now, if a mistake and I were Audi, who sponsored the commercial, I'd demand something be done, like give me my money back, both for the production costs of the commercial and for the airtime. And if it's a dig, well, I am not inclined to favor cheap shots. So, look at this commercial, and this was last weekend, so surely it is the last of the holiday-themed car commercials.
This holiday season, get ready for homecomings.
I see you brought a friend.
What is he? What is he?
Longing. Serendipity.
What are the
Chances.
And good tidings to all.
hang on to your anthers?
It's the event you don't want to miss. It's the Season of Audi sales event. Get up to a $2,500 bonus for highly qualified lessees on select Audi models.
All right, did you see it? They arrive in an Audi. It is an Audi commercial. At the end, it even shows it's the end of season Saudi sales event. And yet, in the middle, the blindfold comes off. That's a Lexus. That is clearly the Lexus logo. So Audi is owned by Volkswagen, Lexus by Toyota, and both are the higher end ones. Audi's VW high end, Lexus is Toyota's high end. So if this is a mistake, clumsy one, no? And if it is by design, which it may be, she opens her eyes and she sees a Lexus, and meanwhile an Audi drives by, catching her eye. I think that's rather sucky, actually. All right. Finally, a priest, a rabbi, and a minister walk into a bar. The barman looks up and says, "What is this, a joke?" All right, that's for you to decide. But what it is the end of this week's episode. The movie Tom's Missed Call premiered last Friday, and I'll be able to show you a few clips from that next week. Meanwhile, for the week upcoming, I hope that it becomes the best one you've ever had.